Here's a phrase you've probably used without ever knowing where it came from. Rich as Croesus. It's been in the English language for centuries, used to describe absurd, almost unbelievable wealth. But almost nobody who says it knows the actual story behind the man it's named after. And that story doesn't end the way you'd expect. Croesus ruled the kingdom of Lydia in what is now Western Turkey in the 6th century before Christ. His wealth wasn't legend or exaggeration. Lydia sat on the banks of a river called the Pactolus, and according to ancient sources, that river carried natural deposits of electrum, a mix of gold and silver, right into his kingdom's hands. Lydia is credited by historians as the first civilization to mint standardized coins. Croesus didn't just have wealth, he had a machine that kept producing it, built directly into the geography of his land.
By every account that survives from antiquity, he became the richest man known to the Greek world. Foreign rulers sent envoys just to see his treasury. Temples across the Mediterranean received his donations. His name reached Athens, Persia, and Egypt, not through conquest, but through sheer visible wealth.
And here's where the myth usually stops. Rich king, glorious kingdom, the end. But the actual ending is the part nobody tells you, and it's the part that matters most. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing about a century after Croesus, recorded a story that has survived for 25 centuries. According to Herodotus, the Athenian lawmaker Solon visited Croesus's court. Croesus, proud of his treasury, asked Solon a simple question: who is the happiest man you have ever seen? Croesus expected one answer: himself. Solon didn't say his name. He named ordinary men who had lived good lives and died well, surrounded by their families before misfortune could touch them. Croesus, frustrated, demanded to know why his own obvious wealth didn't qualify him as the happiest man alive. Solon's response, as recorded by Herodotus, was blunt: call no man happy until he is dead. Until you see how a life actually ends, wealth in the present tense means almost nothing. Croesus laughed him out of the room. This is worth sitting with for a second because it's exactly the mistake wealthy people still make today, confusing a snapshot of net worth with an actual finished outcome. Croesus had every reason on paper to consider himself secure. He had gold reserves most kingdoms couldn't imagine. He had trade routes, temples, allies. What he didn't have was margin, and it cost him everything. A few years later, a new power was rising to the east, Persia, under a king named Cyrus. Croesus, reading the political winds, decided to strike first before Persia grew too strong. Before marching, he did something that still echoes through how people misuse information today. He sent gifts to the oracle at Delphi and asked whether he should go to war. The answer he received, as recorded by Herodotus, was that if Croesus attacked Persia, he would destroy a great empire. Croesus heard exactly what he wanted to hear. He marched. The empire that was destroyed was his own. Cyrus defeated Croesus' forces and captured Lydia's capital, Sardis, in 546 BC. The treasury that had made his name a byword for wealth was seized in full. According to ancient accounts, Croesus himself was captured and brought before Cyrus, his kingdom gone in the span of a single campaign season. The richest man in the known world lost his entire fortune and his throne almost as fast as it takes to tell the story. Here's the number that should actually stop you. Lydia had existed as a wealthy, stable kingdom for generations. It took centuries to build the reputation, the trade networks, the mines, the reserves that made Croesus' name legendary. It took one war, decided in weeks, to erase all of it. This is the actual lesson hiding inside an idiom people repeat without thinking. Rich as Croesus isn't a compliment, it's a warning stitched into the language itself, a reminder that peak wealth and permanent wealth are not the same thing, and mistaking one for the other is exactly what ended his story. So what actually went wrong? Not the war itself, the structure underneath it. Croesus had built enormous wealth concentrated almost entirely around a single fixed asset, his treasury, sitting in one place, defended by one army dependent on one outcome. There was no distribution, no redundancy, no version of Lydia's wealth that could survive if the capital fell. When Sardis fell, everything fell with it, in one motion, because everything had been built to rise or fall together. Compare that to how merchant economies that survived centuries of war and conquest actually operated. Wealth spread across multiple cities, multiple trade routes, multiple forms: gold, land, goods in transit, credit extended to other merchants, so that losing one node never meant losing the whole network. Croesus had no such structure. He had a single glittering point of failure and an enemy who understood exactly where to aim. There's a second failure hiding in the Delphi story, and it's just as important as the military one. Croesus didn't ask a clarifying question. He heard an ambiguous prophecy and filled in the answer he wanted, without stress testing the other possibility. This is the same mistake investors make today when they interpret uncertain information as confirmation of what they already believed, rather than genuinely weighing the case against it. Confidence without verification isn't wisdom, it's just risk, dressed up as certainty.
Put these two failures together, concentration and unexamined confidence, and you get exactly what happened to Lydia. Not bad luck, not an unbeatable enemy. A structure that was never built to survive a single bad outcome, paired with a decision made without genuinely questioning it.
This is why the story survived 25 centuries in a single phrase. Not because ancient audiences cared about Lydian politics, because the mistake is timeless. Every generation produces its own version of Croesus, individuals or institutions that mistake a peak for a floor, that build success on a single point of failure, that hear what they want to hear from a market, an advisor, or their own optimism, and act before questioning it. The families and institutions that actually preserve wealth across centuries tend to do the opposite of what Croesus did, deliberately. They spread their position across forms that don't all fail from the same event. They build in genuine friction before big, irreversible decisions instead of rushing toward confirmation. They ask what happens if the single most likely outcome doesn't happen before committing everything to the assumption that it will.
None of this requires predicting the future perfectly. Croesus didn't need to know exactly how the war with Persia would go. He needed a structure where losing that one war didn't mean losing everything at once. That's the entire difference between a fortune that lasts one lifetime and a fortune that survives a war, a market crash, or a single wrong decision.
So the next time you hear someone described as rich as Croesus, remember what the phrase is actually pointing at. Not the gold, not the reputation, the fall that came right after it. Fast, total, and almost entirely self-inflicted.
The real question was never how much Croesus had at his peak. It was what happened to all of it the moment one assumption turned out to be wrong. And that's the same question worth asking about your own position, long before anyone forces you to answer it.